sunset, sunrise, sunset, swiftly fly the years, one season following another, laden with happiness and tears. Welcome. Shabbat Shalom, as this begins the Jewish Sabbath. At the sunset on Friday night, we're gathered for service of Bar Mitzvah. These words, Bar Mitzvah, refer to John's coming of age, his acceptance of responsibilities. And it's our way as a community of family and friends who are gathered here, of supporting him, of encouraging him, and of walking down a path with him over this next few hours of celebration. Jewish life, as all religions, are filled with symbols that are there that are meant to remind us, whether it's things we wear or that we see or that we do, they're reminders of how to live our lives, how to make this world a better place by our presence in it. There's a symbol on the doorpost of a Jewish home called a mezuzah. It's not part of the alarm system. Just put that little box up there. And I mention that because that symbol is very similar to the Bar Mitzvah, in that symbol is there as we're passing through a gateway in our life, from the house to the outdoor world, from home to school to work to play to the freeway to wherever we're going. And it's reminding us as we're passing through a tiny, seemingly insignificant portal, just a tiny doorway, of who we are and what we stand for and what our responsibilities are as we go out into that world. And when we come home at the end of that day, that mezuzah, that symbol, is still there before our eyes, reminding us that no matter what kind of day we've had, no matter what we've dealt with on the freeway or anything else, we have to respect and honor who we are and who the people are who live in that home. Well, this ceremony of Bar Mitzvah is a gateway ceremony. We know that adulthood doesn't happen instantly. Many of us are still waiting. Childhood is gradual, and adulthood is defined by maturity, by choices, by the responsibilities that we take in our lives, not just by age. But Jewish tradition and law has it that at 13 we recognize that this boy becomes a man through this ceremony. He passes through a gateway. And like the mezuzah, this ceremony is his time in this gateway to stop and say, who am I? Before I move into adulthood, who am I? What are my responsibilities to my family, to all of you, my friends, and to the world that I live in? So I want to ask you to join me in this hour or so of celebration and then the rest of the party as we usher John through this gateway. We continue with the prayer Matovu and then Hine Matov on page 2. Please sing along, hum along, clap along.
טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים.
Nothing ever stays the same. Everything changes. Winds change direction, rivers change course. Clouds change shape, caterpillars change form. Everyone changes. What we were and what we are give way to what we will be. And there is no choice except for how we choose to live, except for what we choose to become. The question is not will we change, but how will we change? Today is a day for change. Today is a day for growth. Today is the day I accept the responsibility of becoming a Bar Mitzvah. Today is the day I become a young Jewish man.
And now I want to call Larry and Carolyn up to present you with your talit, this prayer shawl that we wear, whose fringes add up symbolically to the number 613 through these knots and ties. The number of commandments that are found in the Torah, in the Hebrew Bible. So that in a moment when John wraps himself in this talit, he wraps himself not only in his presence, what we consider, according to Jewish mysticism, this garment of light, but also in the responsibilities that it contains.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech ha'olam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehi atef v'tzitzi.
Just then I could download it.
We continue, in fact, sorry, Larry and Carolyn, I'll ask you to stay up here. We continue with a blessing called the Shehechianu prayer on the bottom of page 4.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam shehecheyanu v'kiyamanu v'higianu lazman hazeh.
O God, who has kept us in life, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this joyous occasion.
We continue by rising for the Ashrei on the following page.
אשרי יושבי ביתך עוד יהללוך סלה, אשרי העם שככה לו, אשרי העם שאדוני אלוהיו, תהילה לדוד, ארומים לו היה מלך, ועברך שמך לעולם ועד, בכל יום אברכך, והרלה שמך לעולם ועד. גדול אדוני מולל מאוד, ולגדולתו אין חקר, דור לדור ישבח מעשיך, וגבורתך יגידו. הדר כבוד הודיך, ודברי נפלאותיך עשיך, ועזוז נרתך יאמרו, וגדולתך ספרנה. זכר רב טובך יביעו, וצדקתך ירננו, חנון ורחום אדוני, ערך אפיים וגדל חסד. טוב אדוני לכל, ורחמיו על כל מעשיו. יודוך אדוני כל מעשיך, וחסידיך יברכוך. כבוד מלכותך יאמרו, וגבורתך ידברו. להודיע לבני אדם גבורותיו, וכבוד הדר מלכותו. מלכותך מלכות כל עולמים, וממשלתך בכל דור ודור. סומך אדוני לכל הנופלים, וזוקף לכל הכפופים. עיני כל אליך יסברו, ואתה נותן להם את אכלם בעיתו. פותח את ידיך ומשביע לכל חי רצון. צדיק אדוני לכל דרכיו, וחסיד בכל מעשיו. קרוב אדוני לכל קוראיו, לכל אשר יקראוהו באמת. רצון יראיו יעשה, ואת שבתם ישמע ויושיע. שומר אדוני את כל אוהביו, ואת כל הרשעים ישמיד. תהילת אדוני ידבר בי, ויברך כל בשר שם קודשו לעולם ועד. ואנחנו נברך מעתה ועד עולם. Hallelujah.
We continue with the Chatzi Kaddish on page 9. Below the Hebrew letters is a transliteration, and below that are the translations for all the prayers that we sing and chant.
יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, ועל מה דברה חילותי וימליך מלכותי, וחי יכול ויום יכול, וחיי דכל בית ישראל, בגלה ובזמן קריב, ויאמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם עולם מעולמיה, יתברך. יתברך וישתבח ויפר ויתרומם ויתנשא ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שבדי קודשה בריחו לילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה תושבחתה ונחמתה דמירן בעלמה
We now face the ark for the call to prayer of the Baruch Hu, which John will lead us in.
Ya la 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 la.
La 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la.
Baruch Hu Adonai, Hamevorach, Baruch Adonai, Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam Va'ed. Hamevorach, Hamevorach, Le'olam Va'ed.
Please be seated. Please join me as we read together at the bottom of page 10 in English. Deep is your love for us, abiding your compassion. From of old we have put our trust in you, and you have taught us the laws of life. Be gracious now to us, that we may understand and fulfill the teachings of your word. Enlighten our eyes in your Torah, that we may cling to your mitzvot. Unite our hearts to love and revere your name. We trust in you and rejoice in your saving power, for you are the source of our help. You have called us and drawn us near to you to serve you in faithfulness. Bring us safely from the four corners of the earth and lead us in dignity to our holy land. Joyfully we'll lift up our voices and proclaim your unity, O God, who in love have called us to your service. We now rise as John leads us in the Shema prayer.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Hashem, Kevod Malehuto, Leolam Va'ed.
Please be seated. John, you can take this. And Nicole, if you'd come up, please, for the reading, Be Alive on page 11.
Think freely, smile often, laugh heartily. Tell those you love that you do. Cherish old friends, make new ones. Hope, grow, give in. Pick some flowers, share them. Stop worrying, be ridiculous. Reach out, let someone in. Get a hug, give a kiss. Enjoy. See a sunrise, listen to rain. Keep a promise, have a faith, make some mistakes. Learn from them. Explore the unknown. Celebrate life.
Well, these prayers, whether they're said in Hebrew or in English, are meant to somehow change who we are. We're not meant to just recite them for the sake of recitation. The word to pray in Hebrew is called lehit palel. And lehit palel is called what's called a reflexive verb, something we do to ourselves, which tells us a little about the idea of Jewish prayer. We're not meant merely to pray to something outside ourselves that we call God or Adonai or any other name. But these words are meant, as the word lehit palel tells us, to be reflections on our own lives. So that in a sense we use these words more than as a telephone to speak to God, as a mirror to speak to ourselves. So that whatever we're reading we use as an opportunity to look at our own lives and say, how through these words, written thousands of years ago or even hundreds of years ago, how can I change who I am? How can I, through these words, make a better contribution to the world that I live in? The prayer Micha Mocha at the top of page 12, or in the middle of page 12, reminds us of a time in history when the Hebrew people were freed from slavery in Egypt and had crossed the Sea of Reeds, this breakthrough point in their lives. When after 400 years of slavery, they now stood as a free nation and as free individuals, determined to make a new path for themselves to what they believed was a promised land. Well, Micha Mocha can also be an opportunity for us to look at these words and say, in what way are we still enslaved today? Not to oppressors, not to giant countries or other people who put shackles on us, but even how can this prayer be a chance for us to say, how do I enslave myself? There's a story that I love by Mark Twain, one of his short stories. And it's about a man who spent years in prison only to discover that the door to his cell was never locked. Think about that as a tragedy. So often we put shackles on our own lives. We enslave ourselves by the things that we choose not to do, by the times we say, I can't, or even by our own destructive habits or our own destructive ambitions. The Hasidim teach us something called a nigun. The John did la la la, ya ba ba, whatever these words are, these nonsense words. And they're not meant merely to be for musical sake. They're meant to lift our spirits so that by the time we get to the Hebrew word that we read, we're already in an elevated state. We already can understand those words in a way that we couldn't before. So, and it also brings us together as a community when we pray together, even if we don't know the words or the language, la la la, clapping our hands. So I want to ask all of you to join me in this nigun, this melody for the Micha Mocha. Yam bam bim bam bim bam, bidi 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 bim bam. Yam bam bim bam bim bam, bidi 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 bam. That's all. That's how hard it is. Yam bam bim bam bim bam, bidi 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 bim bam. Yam bam bim bam bim bam, bidi 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 bam. Micha mocha ba'elim Adonai, mi kamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora hatehilot, osefele, yam bam bim bam bim bam, bidi 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 bim bam, yam bam bim bam bim bam, bidi 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 bam. מלכותך ובניך, מוכה הים לפני משה, זה לי יענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד. Tzur Yisrael We continue in the middle of page 13. Larry, if you would, please.
Let young people be sure that every deed counts, that every word has power, and that we all can do our share to redeem the world, in spite of all its absurdities and frustrations and disappointments. Let them remember to build a life as if it were a work of art.
Please rise as John leads us on page 14 and 15 in the Avot V'Imahot and the Givurot prayers.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu Elohei Abraham Elohei Yitzhak v'Elohei Yaakov Elohei Sarah Elohei Rivka Elohei Leah v'Elohei Rachel Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanara El Elyon Gomel Hasadim Tovim V'konei hakol v'zocher haste avot v'imahot umevi geula livnei v'chem lim'an shemo v'ahava melech ozer u'moshia u'magen Baruch atah Adonai Megen Abraham ve'ezrat Sarah.
Amen. We continue on page 15.
Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai Mehaye Hakol Atah Rav Leoshia Mechalkel Hayim Bechesed Mehaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim So no flame Berofe Holim Umatir Asurim Kayem Emunato Lishene Afar Miha moha ba'ogin barot, umito mela, melech memi, hayem, matzmiya, Yeshua, ven eman ata lehachayot, hakol, baruch atah Adonai,
Baruch Shemo.
mehaye, hakol.
Amen. Please be seated. Well, now as ever, we have a prayer called Vishamru that reminds us of the importance of tonight and of tomorrow, this 24-hour period of the Sabbath. We read in the middle of page 16, the people of Israel shall keep the Sabbath in every generation as a covenant for all time. It is a sign forever between me and the people of Israel. For in 6 days the eternal God made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day the Creator rested.
ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. בני ובן בני ישראל, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ, וביום השביעי שבת, שבת ויהי נפש.
One of the themes of our prayers has always been a prayer for peace. And on page 17, it seems there's always a lack of peace in the world. So somehow this prayer never gets omitted, unfortunately. There's always a time to pray for peace. The word shalom in Hebrew not only refers to peace, as in peace between countries, but it refers to peace and wholeness and synergy and connection in our own lives. Sim shalom, sim shalom tova uvracha ba'olam. Sim shalom tova uvracha. Chen v'chesed v'rachamim aleinu ve'al kol yerei shemecha. ברכנו אבינו כולנו כאחד באור פניך. שים שלום, שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים שלום טובה וברכה. כי באור פניך נתת לנו אדוני אלוהינו תורת חיים ואהבת חסד וצדקה וברכה וברחמים וחיים ושלום. שים שלום טובה וברכה בעולם. שים שלום טובה וברכה. וטוב בעיניך לברך את עמך ישראל בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. ברוך אתה אדוני המברך את עמו ישראל בשלום. Well, it's a silent meditation. Because so often the words that we hear or that we pray with, whether they're in our own language or a foreign language like Hebrew to many of us, don't speak to our own need for prayer. So let's have a couple of moments, a couple of minutes to ourselves, our own thoughts, our own prayers, and our own blessings on Jonny on our Bar Mitzvah.
I hope the lips comes up soon.
For the reading on page 18, I'd like to call on Stan, please. Good, there isn't an Uncle Rise, right? Okay, here we are.
A Talmudic sage once taught, if a person prays only according to the precise text of the prayer and adds nothing from their own heart, their prayers are not complete. After we have recited the traditional prayers, beautiful as they are, we often have the feeling that in our hearts there lingers some precious sentiment to which we have given no expression. These are our own personal yearnings, our most intimate thoughts. Sometimes we are not able to find the words, for there are thoughts that lie too deep for words. At such a time we pray without words, as we do now in a moment of silence. A great musician was once asked, as an ardent admirer, how do you handle the notes as well as you do? The musician answered, The notes I handle no better than anyone, but the pauses between the notes, that is where the art resides. In great living, as in great music, the art may be in the pauses. One of the enduring contributions of Judaism to the art of living is Shabbat, the pause between the notes. May these quiet moments of Shabbat open our hearts and minds. May we savor the blessings of family, centering our souls on the love for one another. May we be blessed with strength and perseverance and the enlightenment to see that we can make a difference in creating a better world. During the pauses, may we be blessed with the sincerity of life rich with meaning.
We continue reading together in English on page 19. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, O God, my rock. Oseh Shalom reads, may God who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend on us, on all Israel and all the world, as we say, Amen.
Oseh Shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Yaseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael.
We now come to the central part of this service, the Torah service, when John will read from the Torah. And I want to ask everybody please to rise. Nicole, I'm going to ask you to come up in a moment to open the ark. A little surprise. We continue in the Hebrew in the middle of page 20 with the translation and transliteration underneath.
En kamocha va'elohim Adonai ve'en kemasecha malchutecha malchut kol olamim uvemshaltecha bechol dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed. Adonai oz le'amo yitem, Adonai yevarech et amo v'shalom. Avrachamim heitiva v'irtzoncha et Zion. Tireh chomot Yerushalayim, Tivneh chomot Yerushalayim. Ki levad
arm, please.
ויהי אהרון ויאמר משה ובא אדוני ויחוסו אויביך וינוסו בשריך מפניך כי מציון תצא תורה כי מציון תצא תורה ודבר אדוני בירושלים.
Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Baruch Shenatan Torah, Torah. Le'amo Israel. Bihikedu Shato.
Our tradition teaches us that when Moses received the Torah on Mount Sinai, he passed it to Joshua, who passed it to the prophets, who passed it to the elders, and on to the entire nation. So in keeping with this tradition, I'd like to ask the generations of John's family who have held this Torah symbolically through their lives to now pass it into his arms. So grandparents and dad would come up, please. Grandma and dad. Would your mom come in? Yeah, please. John, if you'd stand here. And dad in the middle. And your mom in the middle. Pass the Torah. We now sing responsively the Shema and Echad prayers on page 22 after John.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Mo.
Echad Eloheinu Gadol Adonenu Kadosh Shemo. גדול אדוני הייתי ומרוממה שמו יחדיו. לך אדוני הגדולה והגדולה והתפארת והנצח והאור. ככל בשמיים ובארץ, ככל בשמיים ובארץ. לך אדוני הממלכה והמתנשא לכל לראש.
Please take your seats. As you can see, we have the 5 books of Moses written by a scribe, by hand, on this beautiful scroll, the Torah. And you can see that it's heavily weighted to one side because we're now still in the first book of Genesis reading. As Jonny will explain, not only will they read from the Torah today, afterwards he'll give us his commentary, his explanation of what these Hebrew words mean. So, we'll wait. One second. Just say where it is.
יעמדו עלייה ראשונה.
For the honor of the first Aliyah, the first Torah reading this evening, I call on Michael Wax and Martin Baum, please. And I'll give you both this Talib. Okay. You'll also come under so okay. For the blessing this one, please.
Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach.
Baruch Adonai Hamorach Leolam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam. Kol Ha'amim, V'natan Lanu Et Torato, Baruch Adonai, Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
If you go to John's left side, please, while he reads the Torah portion.
Vayira Elov Adonai Be'elonei Mamre Behu Yoshe Pitaha Ohel Kehom Hayom Vayisa Einav Vayar Vehine Shelosha Nashim Nitzavim Alav Vayar Vayarot Likratam Mipe Taha Ohel Vayistahu Artsa Vayomer Adonai Imna Matsati Chem Ve'eneha Al Nata Avor Me'al Avdeha Yuchachna Me'at Mayim Ve'rahatzu Raglehem Ve'hisha'anu Tahat Ha'etz Ve'kafat Lechem Ve'sa'adu Libhem Ahar Ta'avoru Yalken Avarten Avdechem Vayo Meruchem Ta'aseh Ha'asher Dibarta Vaymaher Avraham Ha'ohewa El Sarah Vayomer Mahari Shelosh Seim Kema Solet Lushi Va'asi Ugo.
Please, both of you would say the blessing.
Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu peres emes, hayei olam natan kutenu, baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Just so you know, what's it, please?
Take your time.
While John is reading in the Hebrew, which you can see on page 26, the translation of it, the summary is on page 27 and the top of 28, so you can follow along.
Yamdu Aliyah Shniya.
For the honor of the second Aliyah, I call upon Larry and Van, please.
Baruch Adonai Hamvorach Leonam Va'ed.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher b'chavonu mikol ha'amim, v'notan lanu et torato. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
Va'el HaBakar Rat Abraham Vayika ben Bakar Rach Vato Vaiten El Hanar Vaymaher La'asot Oto Vayika Hem'ah V'chalav Uben HaBakar Asher Asa Vaiten Lifnechem Vehu Omed Alechem Tahat Ha'etz Vayochelu Vayomeru Elav Ayeh Sarah Ishteha Vayomer Hineva Ohel Vayomer Shovashu Eleha Haya Vehine Ben Lesara Ishteha Vesara Shomat Petaha Ohel Vehu Ahara.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu Torah emet, v'olam nata b'Eloheinu. Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
Amen.
And Mazel Tov. Take your seats. And now, of course, for the greatest honor of the evening, the third Aliyah that we call the Maftir, the concluding reading.
Yamot HaBachur Bar Mitzvah Maftir Yonatan
Asher Bahar Banu Mikol Ha'amim Ve'natam Lanu Et Torato Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
Notain HaTorah
Amen. Just this kiss with
V'Avraham V'Sarah Zekenim Va'im Va'yamim Hadol Lehio L'Sarah Ora Hanashim V'Titzak Sarah V'Kirva Lemor Ahare Veloti Hayitali Ena Vadoni Zaken Vayomer Adonai El Avraham Lama Zeh Sahaka Sarah Lemor Ha'af Unam Eled Va'ani Zakanti Hayipalem Adonai Davar Lemor Ed Ashuv Elecha Haya Usara Then
beautiful. Touch kiss again with your fringes. Kiss and then a blessing.
Baruch Ata Adonai Eloheinu Melech Ha'olam Asher Natan Lanu Torah Emet V'Hayei Olam Nata V'Toheinu Baruch Ata Adonai
Baruch Hu Baruch Shemo.
Notain HaTorah
Amen. Mazel tov. And now, assuming that his back and his arms are a little stronger than ours, I'm going to ask Dad to come up, please, to raise the Torah. Your left arm must be stronger than your right. I'll ask everybody, please, to rise. Larry raises this Torah to show us that as a community we have fulfilled the obligation of publicly educating ourselves in its teachings. וזאת התורה אשר שם משה לפני בני ישראל על פי אדוני ביד משה. And Nicole, if you'd come back up, please, with your brother to wrap the Torah, please. And then, if you can take the seat in this chair. With the Torah, with the Torah. Remain standing now as Nicole and John open the ark as we return the Torah to the ark. יהללו את שם אדוני כי נשגב שמו לבדו. הודו על ארץ ושמיים וירם קרן לעמוס תהילה לכל חסידה לבני ישראל המגרובו הללויה The Torah is a tree of life to those who hold fast to it. All who uphold it may be counted fortunate. Its ways are pleasantness and all its paths are peace. Return us, precious one, let us return. Renew our days as you have done of old. up for a reading called Blessings from the Talmud on page 30. Please take your seats. Please stand with him. Don't be nervous, don't worry. He's not good to be nervous. You did great.
Okay. Okay. Live each day to the fullest. Get the most from each hour, each day, and each age of your life. Then you can look forward with confidence and back without regrets. Be yourself, but be your best self. Dare to be different and follow your own star, and don't be afraid to be happy. Enjoy what is beautiful. Love with all your heart and soul. Believe that those you love you. Forget what you have done for your friends and remember what they have done for you. Disregard what the world owes you and concentrate on what you owe the world. When you are faced with a decision, make the decision as wisely as possible, then forget it. The moment of absolute certainty never arises. Blessed is the generation in which the old listen to the young, and doubly blessed is the generation in which the young listen to the old.
Thank you. Well, I said earlier that John would give us his commentary, his thoughts on this week's Torah portion. So, John, if you would, please.
Shalom. My Torah portion is about Abraham, who was kind to greet the three men who stood against him by running to greet them while it was a very hot day. He made Sarah make cakes to welcome them. He got a calf and gave it to the servant to cook for the three men, even though he didn't even know them. While Sarah was in the tent, the three men were telling Abraham that Sarah, who was about 80 years old, is going to have a baby. She overheard them and she started laughing, not believing that she could ever have a baby. It turned out that 9 months later she had Isaac, her son. This section of my Torah portion talks about Abraham's hospitality. Abraham, who could have just sat there, but he was kind enough to run up to them and beg them not to leave. He offered them to wash their feet and stay for dinner. He fed them from the best of his herd and asked Sarah to make them cakes. Well, how would you like to be treated like this? How would it make you feel? If someone treated me with such hospitality as Abraham, I would be very thankful, and I would owe him a great favor. I would also feel very important if someone did this for me. I would also feel very respected, and I would respect him very much. The moral of the story is that one should treat people the way he wants to be treated. For example, if you have a guest or even people come to fix things in your house, ask them if they need anything. Be respectful to others. Treat people with hospitality and kindness. How I will change is I will start making my friends feel more welcome when they are at my house. When there are new people at my school, I ask them if they need anything and I show them around the school. People always appreciate someone helping them and being kind to them. I started wanting to have a bar mitzvah when I went to Joe Wex's bar mitzvah. I was impressed seeing him on the bima chanting Hebrew prayers, and I wanted to experience the same. I had a lot of fun there. Learning the Hebrew was sometimes hard, sometimes fun, sometimes easy. I feel that if I learned the Hebrew and all the chanting, I could learn anything. And for that, I would like to thank Ruti for helping me learn the Hebrew. I would like to thank all my grandparents for coming here today. I love you all very much. I would like to thank my mom for helping me study and for caring for me all these years. I would like to thank my dad for setting up the party and for paying for everything. I enjoyed the time we spent together. Thank you for setting up this fabulous party. Nicole, you've been a great sister, even though sometimes you're a pain in the neck. I would like to thank Michael Wex for encouraging me to have a bar mitzvah. I would like to thank all my friends for always being there for me. I would like to thank all of you who traveled from far away to join me in my bar mitzvah. And thank you all for coming here for me to share my special day. Shabbat Shalom.
You've done an amazing job. I think we all agree. In fact, John, you've looked down so much, so intently, that I want to ask you to look out now. Okay? Let's see who's actually here. Because there are a lot of people in the room here. Your friends, your family, all the people who are here, who love you, who care for you, and who wanted to share this celebration with you. Well, first, before I say a few words, I want to call Dad and Mom up to share their thoughts with you.
Oh, God. This one? I promised Jonathan I wouldn't cry, so this has to be short. I'm just so proud of him, and I love him. And thank you.
Well, we're going to leave the stand-up routine for Michael to do a little later when we toast John and roast him. But, I mean, I look out over the audience, and, I mean, there are two things. Number one, there are a lot of people out there that know me, and number two, we're in a religious place, so I can't go into the whole story of how John looks like me and grew up to be like me. So we'll kind of forget that. I'll take the moment to thank John's mother for, you know, putting the heart in John and making John the boy that he is. So, you know, some of you know that I've got a new baby, a new son, Alexander. And in looking around and thinking, you know, what is it that I wish for Alexander? Well, I wish for Alexander to grow up to be just like John.
Why don't you both stay up for a second? And place a hand on each of his shoulders, firmly. Because it may be one of the last times you get to do this. And repeat these Hebrew words after me. I'll give them to you simply, word by word. Okay. And then in English, very simply. Baruch. Baruch. Just the two of them. Sheptarani. Sheptarani. Good job. Meonsho. Meonsho. Shel. Shel. Ze. Ze. And now loudly, so that everybody hears the translation, I want you to repeat these words in English. The translation. Blessed is God.
Blessed is God.
Who has freed me.
Who has freed me.
From the responsibility.
From the responsibility.
For John's conduct.
For John's
I didn't make that blessing up. It's been in the books for many, many years. Thank you. John, I said that you've done beautifully. But I don't know that everybody realizes quite what this achievement was. You thanked Ruti, your teacher, and she's done an amazing, amazing job. Most people, as many of you know, take years, certainly at least a year, to learn the material that John read. If you see here, whether it was in the Torah or in this book, John didn't read transliteration. He never read English letters. He decided he wanted to have a bar mitzvah. And very, very few months ago, in the summer, he started learning. At the beginning of the summer, he didn't know letters in Hebrew, let alone being able to read from the Torah, which not only has letters, doesn't have vowels. Imagine doing that in English. And then he learned the traditional melody, the cantillation, the chanting melody that goes with each word of Torah. And then he learned the prayers and their meanings. So not only is it a tribute to a wonderful teacher, but it's also a tribute to a wonderful young man. We've talked a lot about the idea that adulthood isn't just about time. Jewish tradition teaches us that at 13, on that birthday, you become Bar Mitzvah, whether you have this ceremony or not. But adulthood comes through choices. That word, we take on that identity of adults by the choices we make, because all life is a series of choices. And what you have in this ark behind you that you read so beautifully from is the Torah, our heritage as Jewish people. Not only is it our history, but it's also our ethics. In that Torah, we learn not only who we are, but what we stand for. And what we stand for is clearly a nation of people who have an obligation to live a life of good deeds and of worthiness, as we all do as all human beings in this world. Today, John, you rose to the point of not only leading yourself, which is the first sign of adulthood, but of leading this room full of people, of family and friends, some your age, some younger. showing your brother an example by how you did this, of your leadership and of your adulthood. But also all of us, adults and friends, who were also so impressed by what you did. I want to present a certificate to you. And in fact, I want to call Uti up, if you don't mind, to present this to you. Want to read it? Okay.
This is a certificate. If anybody would doubt that you had a bar mitzvah, please write to me. Okay. On this Shabbat, the 20th day of the Hebrew month of Kislev, Cheshvan, in the year 5761, John Lawrence Namer has been called to the Torah as a bar mitzvah and is hereby welcomed as a responsible member of the Jewish community.
We continue with the priestly benediction that's found at the bottom of page 31 as we open the ark. For that and the Aleinu, I want to ask everybody please to rise. Continue on page 32 with the Aleinu.
עלינו לשבח לאדון הכל, לתת גדולה ליוצר בראשית, שלא עשנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שם חלקנו כהם, וגורלנו ככל המונם. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד ושמו
Please be seated.
When you get what you want in your struggle for self, and the world makes you king for a day, just go to the mirror and look at yourself and see what the face has to say. For it isn't your mom, your dad, or your friends whose judgment upon you must pass. The one whose verdict counts most in your life, is the one staring back from the glass. That's the person to please, never mind all the rest, for he's with you clear up to the end. And you've passed your most difficult, dangerous test if the face on the glass is your friend. You may fool the whole world down to the pathway of life and get pats on the back as you pass, but your final reward will be heartaches and tears if you cheated the face on the glass.
Thanks. On page 34, we gather our thoughts with the people who've left us, whether it's in this year or in years past, at any time in our lives, as we recall their memories and bring their memories to this day of celebration. For this mourner's Kaddish, I want to ask everybody please to rise as we join any mourners in prayer. And before we do, I want to ask anybody who would like to call out any names of family, friends, anybody that they'd like remembered in this celebration for Jonny and his family. We continue with the Kaddish on page 34 with the translation on the following page. יתגדל ויתקדש שמי רבה, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבה מבורך לעולם ולעלמי עלמיה, יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו והוא יעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל ואמרו אמן. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn and comfort all who are bereaved. May the one who causes peace to reign in the high heavens, let peace descend in all of our lives. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Oseh shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru amen. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Ya'aseh shalom, ya'aseh shalom, shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Mazel tov. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to ask you to follow John and his family through for the rest of the celebration.
It smells yummy.
Johnny? The kid could learn how to do the entire Torah in like 6 months, but 13 years he doesn't know how to use a knife. Anyway, congratulations.
that's it for this tape.
Shut it off before you
Well,
break it. And
yeah.
all the days in the year, this is the worst day you could have picked to do
Why?
this. Look at me and tell
I'm
me
turning
why.